All right, everybody, good morning to you, and of course, welcome to Exploring Buddhist Concepts right here on New Era TT Radio. This is where we are joined by Kasi Senghor, and Kasi will be our host inside of this segment. And yeah, Kasi, good morning to you.
Good morning, Sir Charles. You hearing me?
Yes, I am. I'm hearing you. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. What about you?
Yeah, I think I'm doing pretty okay myself. Thank you very much for asking.
Sometimes, I wish I was a radio host, and then other times I'm glad I'm not. It's a really tough job, but you do very well, and you're keeping this thing alive. In sport, like if I was a sports cat or a radio host or an announcer or whatever,
Mhm.
I would say something like, in sport today, we have Trinidad and Tobago is celebrating a victory in the javelin throw with um, uh, Kevin Walker winning gold and silver in the cycling with Jareem Richards in the 400 meters or whatever. Of course, I have my little script in front of me and all that. And I would feel very good that, would also want to say, congratulations to these men. And it shows that everything isn't as bleak as it looks in the sporting arena. And, want to say something about these men being honored and, hopefully they'll be treated a lot better than the way apparently that we have treated Mr. Crawford, who can sometimes find a participate in his own stadium and not even recognized by security in his own land and that sort of thing. So, having said all of that, it's good to be here, and it's good that that we have such highlights then to come in between all the negativity, so to speak, to lift our spirits. In that context, can I ask you, Sir Charles, about Steve Williams? I don't know if you got on there, if you eventually connected, because I don't think he came on yesterday.
Say that again, Cassie. You like to what?
Steve Williams, did you get
Uh-huh.
on there yesterday?
Oh, yes, I got it. Actually, he had sent me a message, but the time that he sent it, I was in between some others, like the talk program, so I didn't check my phone.
Oh, so he's all right then.
Yes, he is. He is.
All right, okay, good, good. But sometimes we here today and we not here the next time.
Yes, we are.
And so one has to be very careful in these times as to where people are and when they're supposed to be in X place and they're not in Y in a certain place. And if I may talk about, how, how the country um, approaches quite a number of things, like I can't remember exactly how it slipped my mind now what you had said. I was going to refer to this morning. So, just said it just before bringing me on about about the country, but I can't remember the statement you made. Anyway, the statement that I want to make is um, that the road to hell is paved with good intention.
I've
Oh,
heard,
right,
I've
right.
heard, I've heard that too.
Yeah, what you said that too.
Yeah, I've heard that too. It's paid with good intention.
Yeah, right. But what you know, slipping again. You said so. Yeah, it's slipping again because you said something a while ago with war coming on. Something in that same sphere. Oh yeah, right. Okay, that how people cannot be on the same page, you know, and that made me think about, well, maybe everybody doesn't have the same intention, and should we expect everybody to have the same intention? I don't know. I mean, like, everybody in one country have the same intention. That would be very hard. I think the largest group of people that would have the same intention, which may not be their intention, but would be an army. An army would have an intention to go out there and fight and win in the battle. But it may not be the intention of the individual, or whether it may be depending on indoctrination and that sort of thing. Because some armies are just, like Robert said, there's a war. You belong to the army, and that is why you're there. You're there to defend the country. And or that we say, okay, time to fight, and you get in your tank or your drone or your jet or whatever, your warship, your submarine, and you go there and you blow up a few things. You have some ships or whatever you have to blow up or invade or whatever. But the intention, as a worker, the intention is yours, and the intention is that of the supreme power. And it could be the same way in life where there's something else at work that with our intentions, circumstances, you know, did you touch when you woke up this morning and touched the floor with your feet? You know, what was your intention then? Did you make an intention for the day first of all? Is that your practice? Is that your habit? Or do you just, walk into the day unguardedly, the routine then, or as some people say, you get up on the wrong side of the bed, which suggests that intention is even out of the question, you're just moving more like a robot than someone who has thought out how they would approach life for the day, and then if you have a phone and you're accustomed to people sending you posters about the day, which you have today, telling you to smile and to be sincere, and telling you, this day is one that in which you could do this or that and the other. Some posters give you hope, some posters give you advice, etc., etc. And then maybe you might form an intention that, all right, then, okay, today I will be a little more responsible. Today I will be more mindful, as the case might be. depending on your bent, if you're religious, today I may be a little more prayerful. I will look after the welfare of people rather than my own today. Totally, I will be a little less selfish, more generous. It all depends, and so therefore you start to form an intention. But in Buddhism, um, well, for most people in Buddhism, again, not everybody is on the same page, but for most people in Buddhism, we start the day with meditation. You know, there is the us who have to. We may not start at the same time, or we may not join a group that is having a meditation practice, let's say on Zoom. Because at that time you are preparing to go to work as the day is going. But in the back of your mind, okay, there's intention to, to meditate, you know. But for those of us who do practice on mornings, we recognize that intention is an emotional activity of the mind, you know. Speaking in Buddhism, a lot about body, speech, and mind, and intention is an activity of the mind. And I feel even good so far as to say that it's a well, I've been looking at some videos and so on, and one presenter, spoke of intention as an attitude uh, towards the world, and this attitude is coming from the heart. So there is more involvement of the heart than of the brain, and maybe even of the mind, where intention is concerned, you know. So those of us who awake in the morning intending to have the best day possible and are already in the practice of meditation, of meditating as a beginning activity, doing or ought to do very well when it comes towards the day, towards enjoying the day. Because in the meditation, one can learn how to accept both ends of the stick, whether you get the short end or not. Meditation will show you that, watch, of course you watch it, you know the end you get, but also you're aware of the stick itself. In other words, that's just an analogy to say you try to see things holistically rather than in various parts, and you try to attend to matters that are in front of you, not just to suit yourself, but to suit as many people as possible without harming yourself and harming others. We have a lot of that, of course, in other arenas in the country, in the politics in particular, we have all these statements flying around these days from different individuals. We're going to mention, not to mention the groups that these individuals come from. whether it's this one or that one or who versus who. But it's just that different individuals are experiencing statements which are not, as you said, such as on the same page, which are, you know, which are harmful and which are into a very selfish kind of situation. Now, in earlier talks of this kind, when we started off here, I started off by talking to you all about the Four Noble Truths, which, let me remind you, are that there is suffering, that you know you may have to look for it sometimes, especially if you're denying it, you have to certainly go looking. There's a cause to suffering, and that cause is grasping, clinging. We are in the human realm, as the realm of desire, as human beings. And that's what we do. Examine yourself and you will see that what we do is have more and more. We have desires for more and more and more. Never satisfied, always discontent, discomforted, slightest little thing. And then there is the cessation of suffering, the third force, the third truth, because there's a beginning, there's an end. And we can end suffering, or you can end it, our suffering. Suffering will probably always be there, but the sufferer can always move away, again, with the ability to look at, distance oneself from the suffering, see it for what it really is. And lastly, the fourth noble truth is to practice the Eightfold Noble Path, which will bring us to seeing things as they really are, which is the noble intention of Buddhism, where practitioners are encouraged at every step of the way to see things as they really are. Seeing things as they really are is the noble intention that brings us towards what we call enlightenment, towards what a lot of people know as nirvana, to peace, to lasting happiness. So that noble intention, which is one of the aspects of the fourth noble truth of the Eightfold Path, which we call a right intention, is very, very important in the progress towards enlightenment. Or if it even is not, let's say, this is just my term, if it's not just as high as enlightenment, at least to some to happiness then. And even if that happiness is not long lasting, at least the moments of it are encouraging and helpful then, in that we don't have to be always down in the dumps, always insecure, etc., etc. So we make, at the beginning of the day, we touch the earth to our feet, so to speak. And for some of us, this is where we make formalize an intention for the day. But this is always an easy task, because so many things running through the mind, so many things occurred yesterday, so many things are occurring at the moment when you touch down, and so many things are carded for the future. Your calendar is full with things in the future. You have holiday next week. How will you spend it? You have a month end coming up. How will you spend the money that you earn, or will you have money at all to spend? You know, it's for some people. So intentions, how would you say, cross the span of tenses, the past, the present, and the future. And as I mentioned earlier, the question of speech, body, and mind comes to the fore, because especially in speech, you are in conversation with people, and you can't always expect that you can form an intention about the conversation, because it's all happening so very quickly. You know, person says something, but you respond, and you know it goes in speech. So formulating an intention in that sphere of speech is not easy but helpful. And some people recommend, what they call active listening. That, I think maybe one of them, Dean or Junior or somebody, would know about that and would have been practicing that um, along the way. So you have something called active listening, where you are not making things up while the other person is talking, but listening in such a way that you can formulate or that you can give a proper response. And as I said, there is intention to do this, but it happens very quickly. As some people might say, you have to think on your feet. So your intention there, uh, uh, how to say it, has to be sharp there. As with action, you have a little more time then to formulate an intention, because you would have to sort things out. In some instances, in other instances, you have to act very quickly also. But more often than not, you have time to sort things out as to what I'm going to do in a certain situation, like I was mentioning just about um, going to do, so just the future. What am I going to do? How am I going to spend this day, next week, the end of the month, etc., etc. So intention covers all of these areas, and according to Buddhism, there are three aspects of intention that that the Buddha spoke of, and the first one is renunciation, and in preparing for today, I have sort of coined my own helpful hint, so to speak, with regard to intention. I call them the three S's. But anyway, in Buddhism, these three aspects of intention are renunciation, and this is tantamount to giving up you know, to skillfully giving up. And why? Because in intention, you want to be clear. You want to your head. We are heading towards enlightenment, and we want our intentions to be that of knowing things as they really are, as the overall intention. And in doing that, you have to sort of give up a lot of stuff. As you know, but well, for monks and nuns, it's sort of like give up everything that is worldly. But for us lay people, we don't have that opportunity or let's say, that privilege of giving up everything because we have to live, we have to work, we have to earn, we have to raise a family. But nevertheless, there are things that we can give up to see more clearly our intentions and to show more clearly to ourselves and to others our intention in life. And I have found myself uh, doing some giving up over time, some more slowly than I would really like to, some addictions, more slowly than I really should have, and some quite quickly. And then some every now and again, like the other time I used to give up. But this is just me, it's not about any religion or anything. Like I used to give up listening to the radio or any outside media from Ash Wednesday right through to Easter. This was me on my own, and this was I'm not talking about in the days when the religion said that you shouldn't listen to calypsos. And that was during my school years, that you'd be punished if you listen to calypso and if you gave up eating meat and that sort of thing. I'm talking about young adulthood and adulthood and so on. When I just decided, I said, look, listen, you know, um, I ain't doing media this wrong, sir. And I would give that up, but I would make that an intention. And day by day, I would go stronger in it and so on. These days, I find myself having given up on sport or the watching of sport or the interest in sport. Listen to the radio here. I hear the news about our victories. But whereas, there was a time when, oh boy, I couldn't do without watching Barcelona. I couldn't do without, taking an interest in the CPL or any kind of sport like that, team sport, or individual. I love lawn tennis and so on, that kind of thing. But I found myself, I don't know, one could say, well, maybe it's age or maybe it's circumstance or whatever. But even if it's age and circumstance, I find that I'm have given them up, and I'm not missing them. I'm not really overly concerned about, oh boy, we're trying to get on to watch a match and that kind of thing. Now, I'm not saying that so that you could follow me. I'm just saying that that is one of the areas, which is the area of sport that I have been able to give up. And as well as I mentioned in passing to some addictions which I have acquired over the years, I feel very good about having been able to give them up. And there are still addictions which I um, have to work on. There is a work in progress. So the intention is there, and I must say that the intention has worked very well in in the past, in the recent past, also giving up quite a number of things. So there is that in the Buddhist tradition, which we call renunciation, through using intention to get to that. And there is the second one is non-anger, you know, because um, Buddhism speaks to these three poisons: greed, anger, and delusion. And anger being uh, a very dread situation that sometimes overpowering us, sometimes more quick at the draw than we would like, gets us into mm, big trouble. Makes us say the things that we ought not to say, to do the things we ought not to. So that intention in Buddhism uh, is recommended there, the intention to see things as they really are. And one of the things to see as they really are, as it really is anger, which arises sometimes, we know that from what? You might want to point a finger and say, well, you get my back, so I don't like so and so, like, and it's like, but nevertheless, it is we who are affected by it, you know. And we think that we are doing another person something, when we vent our anger on them and blame them and, do other things to them, we think. But we are really and truly poisoning ourselves with anger. And therefore, it is a very useful intention there to harbor non-anger. And the I have read these three essays are concerned. Remember, let me remind you that I kind of made up three essays in one of them, and that first one was sport. It was given up with sport and renunciation. Here now with the amp, and I was up the question of smile. Strange as it might sound, the intention to smile. And just yesterday, I had an experience where I was out and about, and it occurred to me after some time that hey, you're moving around, but these days I'm not moving around as quickly as I should. I'm slowed down quite a lot. Nevertheless, I'm moving around, and I'm having a look at people around me and that sort of thing. And I was saying, but wait, Kasi, why aren't you um, doing something about yourself in the midst of all of this? And I decided and made an intention to smile and to tell the truth, listeners. I began to feel a lot better immediately. You know, I would even say that things began to look different and actually change in front of me. I visited or tried to visit two places to look for two persons. One wasn't there. Uh, and the other place was closed up. A business place was closed up. So that, instead of being drawn back and disappointed and so on, something occurred. I don't know where it came from, but it just simply the suggestion came that to simply smile, and that changed everything. And they didn't bring the people back out to work or what have you, but it changed everything so drastically that I felt like, why couldn't we look like this for most of the time? So people recommended all the time, posters and so on, smile, smile, smile. But you don't move around. Well, I don't move around like a smiley, always smiling, smiling. But yesterday, smile became important. At least it arose in mind to be to smile. And I think that also came about because I had intended to give some fruit to one of the persons that I was looking for. And I ended up giving it to somebody else who was very, very, who's, happy to get them, the fruits that it. And by that time I was already smiling. It wasn't my intention to really give that person, but right on the spot then, going into that place and seeing this other person, I said, look, let me do this. But I ain't going back home with this thing. And I began to smile and I began to do it. And I credit that to formal meditation, where to the degree that one is practicing, things arise in one's circumstances spontaneously. That is very helpful. So the smile came there. If one could say without really intending, but also with also intending to. Even though I could say, well, I didn't leave home with that intention, but here it arose spontaneously, and I began to smile, and that helped a great deal in how I felt, and I'm sure in how other people felt too, because to me, like everybody else was smiling, all the vendors, if even they weren't smiling, they were very kind, in how we related, and by making purchases and they selling to me and that kind of thing. So it was a nice two-way street, and there was a lot of, seemed to be a lot of generosity, not in the sense of I just have something to give to you, but in the sense of not being selfish, not being stingy, not not being miserly then, and at the same time not hoarding any particular feeling of being better than or knowing more than, as the case might be. It was just an evenness that the smile brought about. A sort of, hey, we are on the same page. The child would be happy to know that that kind of feeling could come about without actually being on the same page. But there it was yesterday. And lastly, in Buddhism, we talk about harmlessness in intention. Harmlessness I did mention about sound in body, speech, and mind. You know, so we are practicing, especially as lay people, we are practicing the opposites. Then to say that we are practicing the opposite of renunciation, giving up. We are practicing the opposite of anger, although that is essential that we practice loving kindness and so on. We're not practicing the opposite of harmlessness, which is helpfulness, But what we are doing is intending for the mind to become, I would even say, non-attached then to these concepts while um, allowing them to manifest in our lives. So that in many texts, Buddhist texts, they are framed not as opposites but as non stuff. So it's like um, renunciation, non-anger, no harmfulness. You're good, you're not good, you're neutral, and there is no attachment there towards any of these feelings or ideas or concepts in your life. And a very good, finally, about to close off here, a very good example of what I think I've taken one in with Dr. Ryan. Every time they call him Dr. Ryan, right now, even as I mentioned in the news, I feel like how they say, a fourth race, because the Dr. Ryan was a guest on this morning's program. And the very fact that he said that he was which means that they call him a dunce. So that he could have continued being a dunce. But he's now Dr. Ryan, working out of the UK, and has written a book, I think, and is writing another one. And a very good proponent of it, a good doctor there, where that is concerned, that that turned around to me, because he was saying, things this happened and that happened. He didn't, I intended that I would be a doctor. He applied for a job, he didn't get it where he wanted it, and they said, well, look, why don't you go here? He went there. Here is Dr. Ryan. One could say Dr. Ryan, formerly the dance. That would be so kind. Just to emphasize where I'm coming in Dr. Ryan that brought him to where he is today. And I think while I was listening to him, I noticed that the sincerity in his voice, that he was told, because the push was in the right direction. And he went along with it. And intentions grew, and today, here he is, Dr. Ryan, doing human service. In regard to intention, which relates very closely to the Four Noble Truths, and especially to the fourth one, and especially to the one of the Eightfold Paths called right intention. We have renunciation, we have harmlessness as pointers in intention that we can look at. So whether we are prayerful or meditating or what have you, it's very helpful to remind ourselves more clearly the truth of our own lives or the way things really are. We can practice non-anger, which may not necessarily be practicing love and restraint. Thirdly, we can all practice harmlessness, and where we make the intention that regardless of what happened, we're not going to harm anyone. So in this regard, I spoke about this all of this therapy within the doctor. So I leave it there for today to Charles and to listeners. And if there's anyone who wants to call in with a question or comment at this point, and that.
Okay, no problem. But we don't have anybody calling in between there. So I guess we'll probably leave it there. We get closer to 12 o'clock in any case, you know?
All right. So what is your intention, such as?
What is the intention? What are you talking about?
Oh boy, I just went through that.
Oh, you mean very good. No, I was doing some other things while I was talking, while you were doing the program, Kasi. Sorry about that.
No, don't know. No need to apologize. I realize
Oh,
that from time to time. You
yeah,
have to
because,
do that. Yeah,
but
if you don't do that, you won't be on top of things.
no, not all the time, not all the time.
Yeah.
But I see somebody's calling me here, so maybe this person has a question for you. Good morning, caller. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, Sir Charles and Casey.
Cassie.
What I was trying to say is that I'm not hearing him Casey properly. He's only sticking the video, the voice was going and coming. So I was calling you to tell you why I'm not hearing him in this late part here that he's speaking.
Yeah,
not in the early part, in the late part. So I was calling to tell you that.
Okay, no problem. Thanks a lot. Yeah, I think the internet in the last few minutes, like it started to fluctuate, Cassie. Hello. Yeah, I think it's actually doing it again.
I'm saying as long as it didn't interfere with the main body of what I said.
Well, I'm hoping that it did that.
All right then, Sir Charles.
Okay, no problem. Well, thank you very much, Cassie, and for being here with us on Exploring Buddhist Concepts, people.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be happy. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be happy. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease.
Wake up with the NETT Radio Breakfast